Hi, I'm Kevin Churko.
And I'm Kane Churko.
And we're music producers, engineers, living and working out of Las Vegas at the Hideout Recording Studio, which we own. Collectively, we've worked with people such as Ozzy,
Papa Roach,
Five Finger Death Punch,
In This Moment,
Disturbed, Corey Marks. Welcome to our world. So I first got into music in kindergarten. No, I'm not going to go all the way back there, but basically the cliff notes are played in a family band, played in another band with my brother. You know, we couldn't afford the best engineers and that sort of thing, so I kind of ended up falling onto me, and, you know, we had the equipment we had with the, you know, tape recorders we had and did the best we could, and that just I kept getting more and more interested in that. And, you know, that just sort of became my part of the band. My brother was more the star, and I was just more the workhorse in the trenches. But I liked it. I liked recording. I liked to create the music. I didn't care about much other than that. I just you know, it's a beautiful world because at the end of the day, you have something that lasts and stands for the rest of time. You know, playing live, that show's there and gone, which there's a magic and a beauty in that. But I think for me, it was nice in those days to have that CD or that album and say, I did this, I created this, it's going to last hopefully for, you know, maybe not the end of days, but longer than tomorrow. So that just one thing led to the next, and then he was born, and I was always playing in bands, and he was born, and then I decided, you know what, I got to be more stationary, and so it's time to settle down, and went to the nearest recording studio and tried getting a job, and couldn't. How about you? He was born into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think aside from the obvious of growing up, you know, in a musical family and around musical people, we both sort of come from playing in bands and ultimately having to write songs for those bands, record those bands, not having money to hire someone else to do it for you. So you figure it out on your own, and then eventually you realize, oh, I produced a record, my own band's record. And just start branching out from there. You know, eventually, after I made my own records, people started asking me to help them with their own, and it was a natural progression to start producing records for the people.
I think for me, the records that I worked on that kind of gave me the elevated career, let's call it, was, you know, I used to work for another producer, Mutt Lang, so I had just engineered for him. I wasn't producing, wasn't writing, but, you know, we did stuff for Shania Twain. We did a Britney Spears track. We did a bunch of songs with the Corrs. So those really helped me as far as getting my chops up and getting good. And then, but it really wasn't until I did the Ozzy record that all of a sudden my name became more of a rock name and more of a real name. And I think without that, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I was or that I ended up in. So I think the first Ozzy record, Black Rain, that I did, that was kind of the most important. Not necessarily biggest or the best, but definitely the most important because everything kind of stemmed from that one. And then it went in from there, In This Moment, Five Finger, etc. You know, The Sound of Silence by Disturbed is probably my biggest song that I produced. Cross Some Boundaries, so that was, you know, a real treat, you know, to get that. I'm very grateful for that and thankful for that. And then I just kept working with the same band. So really, once I broke some of those barriers, you know, 8 records with Five Finger, 6 within this moment. You're doing one within this moment now. You know, those were kind of the records that sort of, in a sense, broke me. And even then, it wasn't overnight. You know, you think that you do a record and all of a sudden the phone's going to ring. It didn't ring, you know. And in fact, many times, you know, I'd have no work and the phone would ring and I'd look over at my wife and go, is this going to be the big call? Is this going to be the big call? And it wasn't. It was the power company or something. That was the big call. I think a little different for you in a sense because, you know, you saw me go through all that. So you knew that it was going to be, you know, a long haul, you know, to get your name happening, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think for me, when we talk about the phone ringing, I think about Blood by In This Moment.
Right.
And right. For me, that's when the phone started ringing, and that's when other bands started to take notice. And I think it was the first time I really got to inject a sense of my own personal style and things into rock music, which was different for me even at the time. And still to this day, I mean, it's been 10 years since that record came out. I'm still working with that band, which is awesome. And that's one that it stands the test of time for me. I can go back. I'm still proud of it today. Still trying to make other things I do sound as good as that record. I think some of the best times that we have in the recording studio are actually when we get to work with each other. And
oddly enough, we don't really spend too much time in the same room.
Yeah, I mean, not as often these days because we're both booked out on different things lots of the time. But when we get in the room together, I think we always end up turning over new leaves and trying new sounds and sharing tricks with each other. And it really becomes an iron sharpens iron sort of dynamic, I think, between the two of us. And we always end up having a lot of fun. It's nothing really compares, I don't think, to that for me.
Yeah, it's really a situation of almost more of a brother relationship rather than a father-son. You like being in the room with people who push you to greater heights, and that's what he does for me. And we never come away from a session with each other feeling lousy. We always feel more empowered, more energetic, and I think that if you can, in your own career, if you can always have those kind of situations, you only get better and better. I think the things that I really enjoy about mixing is being alone. I can't say that.
That's true. It's true. It's true. I enjoy that too. There's something magical about either cranking the speakers or putting on some headphones and sitting there and just kind of like playing the song like an instrument.
Yeah.
And being able to explore it and make mistakes with it and beat it up different kinds of ways and stuff like that. You don't always get that when you have when you're producing records and you got 5 band members in the room over your shoulder. But mixing kind of becomes sort of a little more of a hypnotic, meditative space.
It's completely a meditation where it doesn't mean you don't like being with people. I love people, but it's like when you're meditating and you get in that zone, that sonic zone, and you can kind of hear the 3 dimensions of what you're doing. I mean, it's just different than if you just surface listen, or different than if there's 5 people in the room and somebody's talking and somebody's moving and somebody's doing this. It's like you're focused, ultra focused, and it's almost like, it's really like playing a musical instrument, in a sense, even though you might only have a trackball or faders or whatever you're mixing on. I think that to me is my most favorite thing about mixing, and getting to go home when you want.
My friends say I should walk away, hell run while you can, 'cause you can't trust a woman who's lying to another man.
I think the most challenging thing about mixing is really mixing other people's stuff. We both usually mix our own stuff, and then every now and again we do mix other people's stuff. And when you have a session from another producer, another engineer, you just find they do things different ways, not necessarily even better or worse, but different. So you have to find different solutions, different ways of solving problems, and ways that maybe you don't have to do on your own recording or how you record something. But I always find I learn new tricks when I mix in other people's stuff, and it's from that challenge.
Yeah, it's easy for a mixer just to grab down into the same old bag of tricks and take out the same tricks they use. But when you do work for other people, it's a little bit more challenging, which is a good thing because you end up being better. But I think besides that, one of the most important challenges for me when mixing is actually diversity of opinion from the band, let's call it. Or A&R, diversity from the band and the A&R, diversity from the band within the band, or diversity from the manager with the band, or diversity from the fans with the band. So you kind of have to throw everybody's opinion into one, and lots of times you're making compromises that you don't necessarily like to make, but that's part of the business. And the ones that can be successful are the ones that can, oddly enough, try to please everybody, at least to the point where nobody can actually not like it. If management likes it, the band likes it, the label likes it. Yeah, not everybody's going to get every little piece of the puzzle that they want into it, But I think our jobs is to glue that all together into something that's still great. And honestly, most of the time, it's not something I just do on my own. It's taking that compromise, and that's the maturity of being in the business a long time. And I have to remind myself that too, that it's about compromise and getting the best of the compromise and not the worst. I think we all do various things to stay creative in this business, and I think one of the best things for me is having him. I mean, he approaches it from a different point of view, and that's the joy of having a large studio with different rooms, is you can just walk into the next guy's room and just see what he's doing and talk about it, and he can show you his new piece of gear or this new little trick that he's kind of come up with. So I get inspiration from that, and from people parachuting into my world and showing me great stuff. I mean, nothing makes me happier than an assistant or someone else teaching me anything, because that's awesome info, and everybody can teach everybody's stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter what level that they're at, if they only teach you what not to be doing. So I think that is one thing where the people part of it comes into the equation of being inspiring and helping it to be better.
Yeah, I mean, you have to always keep learning and being open to learning, because there's always new tools, there's new trends, there's new sounds, there's new kinds of fans, new kinds of listeners, all that, and really continuing to just listen to lots of different stuff and listen deeply, and not even just to the stuff you like. It's good to listen to things you don't like, and maybe things that you don't like but are still doing cool stuff. Like, if you're a rock guy, listen to some pop songs and you'll hear different tricks that they do that you never hear in rock. And that whenever I hear a trick in another genre of music that I've never heard in my own genre, let's say, I'm always thinking, how can I make that work? How can I bring that in? How can I infuse that into what I'm doing? And I think just being open and not just staying focused on the one thing you like and the one thing you do. I'm better at all the things I do because of the things that I do outside that and around that.
Yeah, I would have to say that the quickest way to not working is by being really, really good at one thing. That's kind of meaningless, because it's not one thing that you're going to have to do. We all work for other people. We're the worker bees. We are hired by other people to help them make their music. And so you got to be adaptable, and you're adaptable by listening to different things, and you're adaptable by, trying different things. I mean, no movie director just watches Westerns and that's all they watch and that's all they do. I mean, they'll steal from every genre, from everything,
There's a saying that I love that's use your ears, not the gear. And I think that's something that is easy to forget. I mean, we're engineers. We love equipment. We love gear. We love toys and all of those things. But you can forget sometimes that there's no rules to anything. And you should just be trying to use your imagination more than anything. And I always suggest to people, try any tool. Try to make a good sound out of any tool. If you have a crappy, cheap guitar, see how good you can make that guitar sound. And it's always been a process for me that once you can, use your creativity to make, let's say subpar equipment and subpar situations sound good, well, then you can make a great situation sound awesome. And that's something that that you only do through experience and time and not the gear itself.
I mean, I have to say that I think I always enjoyed life more when I was using subpar equipment, because it's very challenging, it's very creative, and you always have an excuse then why it doesn't sound good. Whereas once you can have anything you want and get anything and use any tool, it's like the pressure's on. You better make it sound good or you're not good, because you're the only weak link in that chain.
I'm on the wrong side of heaven, and the righteous side of hell. The wrong side of heaven, and the righteous side of hell. The wrong side of heaven, and the righteous side.
These days I'm really into a sort of hybrid mode of mixing. I use tons of in-the-box tools and plugins and all those sorts of things. But I like to use some gear outside that as well. And I have everything in my room set up as inserts within Pro Tools, so I can easily mix and match a piece of gear with a plugin and whatnot. And I think that's sort of brought the best of both worlds together for me in a way that I can eliminate some of the things I like less about digital, use a lot of the things I like more about digital, and kind of create this illusion where you can't tell where real and not real ends and begins, which is why I love that approach.
My approach is a little different than his because I tend to do more stuff on the way in. And then once it's in the box, just kind of leave it there. But a lot of the things that I think I do a little more than maybe the average guy, maybe not him, is a lot of automation. I'm not just talking about volume automation. I'm talking about EQ automation, say from a verse to a chorus on a vocal, guitars getting a brightness bump in the choruses, those kinds of things, lots of effects going up and down that you don't even really necessarily notice at the time. Hopefully you don't ever notice the technology in a song on the mix. You only notice that you like the song. That's the goal, really. But I find that maybe for me, I like that part of the process of digging in and taking low mid down in certain sections and boosting, even in mastering, compressing sections differently from verse to choruses, and again, with the obvious intent of making the song an enjoyable listen, that you don't have to take any of those things into account. I think my go-to analog signal chain always goes through changes. And through the phases of my career, I can listen to a record I've done and say, oh yeah, that's when I used to use the Avalon 737 as a mic pre and going through Distressor and even some of the presets that we've made in ControlHub. I've kind of gone back and reverse engineered all the things I used to do up to the date where I'm at now, whereas now I'm more likely to go into an Unfairchild and into an LA3A, which I really love. That's kind of my current thing. But before, it was a 737 compressor and EQ going into Distressor. And I kind of go back in circles again. It's really, the gear is just a medium for the creativity that we have and for what we're going to do with that gear. So I don't think I necessarily have, one favorite. I think it's good for everybody to try different things, and with different bands, different singers, different guitar players, that means different gear, different analog chains. But, most people can't go wrong with a 1073 and an LA2. That's pretty hard to mess that up. But that's not always exciting, So I like to try patching whatever's available, and just see how it goes now.
These days, I like analog gear that sort of makes digital feel less digital and glues things together in a way that has more of that classic sort of analog feeling and whatnot. That being said, you kind of just go through cycles, and there's, he mentioned the Avalon 737 and a Distressor. There was a lot of years, maybe even 10 years, where that's the only preamp and distress and compressor that I had. So when I plug into that chain to this day, it just sounds right to me, and it sounds comfortable. It sounds like home. That being said, there's days where you come in and you don't want to use anything you've used before, or you don't want to use it the same way, and you reset all your settings just to force yourself to fumble around and crash into something different. And sometimes you do, and sometimes that becomes your new sound. And then 10 years pass, and you miss the 737 and the Distressor sound, and you reset and you go back. So
yeah, I think a cool thing that you've been doing a lot of is working with your oven there. That's a pretty cool new piece of gear that that I'm jealous of, and I'm going to get one now too. I think people can expect a lot of diversity in this expansion pack. In some ways, there's not a lot of individual presets, such as, there's not, 20 snare patches and stuff, but we have, say 4 great ones that are different enough that you can flip through them real quick, and then you can just tailor it from there. And because, all the technology that we put into it means that your starting point is great. And then you can just adjust it for whatever your song needs, whatever your sound is. It doesn't have to be our sound. Now it's your sound just by changing a few things. Just by using an acoustic patch on your vocal or the vocal patch on your guitar. I mean, you know, even though things are arranged in the pack to be, you know, drums, guitars, whatever, don't let that limit you. I mean, I almost feel like they should have just been numbers, and you can just flip through number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because you don't want to mentally get stuck. Oh, I can only use this on a vocal. You can do whatever you want. You're in charge.
I think one of the keys for us with this pack was to expedite problem solving and things we have to do in mixes all the time, chains we have to continuously bring in all the time. Well, let's turn them into a preset. Let's make it so we can bring it in. It already sounds pretty good. We can either just tilt it a little this way or tilt it a little this way and have it be right within seconds even. And being able to present those in a way where they're going to be useful to other people, help them get to awesome sounding mixes faster. I think that was really the goal.
Kane and I really worked with each other in this pack, and I knew that going in, we'd have more rewards by doing it with each other. Because we do things differently. And even though, you know, almost like in the end our sounds are kind of the same, our path to get there are different. So he's focused on different things than me. Obviously I'm older and more, you know, maybe old milk truck horse kind of guy, and he's like the young Ferrari or something. I don't know what you'd call it, but I think we have some diversity in the pack that isn't just my sound or just his sound. It's our sound, and then we could, you know, encourage each other to do different things and, you know, go through a couple more options.
Yeah, I mean, we work on this pack kind of not much differently than we sometimes work together on music. Is we started out both kind of going into our separate corners and doing what we do on our own, and then we had show and tell where we came together and we showed each other what we did, and we tweaked some of each other's settings with each other and gave each other feedback and everything, and combined it all to one thing that's useful to both of us.
I really think that people are going to enjoy this pack, the expansion pack, because it was enjoyable for us, and I knew it would be more enjoyable if we included each other on it too. And you know, it kind of let me patch in a whole bunch of things I hadn't patched in for a long time. A bunch of pieces of analog gear that was fun, or I used to use and maybe have gravitated somewhere else now, so it's kind of got good memories as I'm patching in old pieces of gear. And it kind of reminded me about the joy of everything that I already own. So I think, you know, hopefully people will appreciate that. And I think that, you know, that joy comes across in the sounds.
Yeah, we had so much fun making this pack. We opened up sessions from the last 15 plus years.
Yeah.
We went digging for things we forgot we even used to do, and we made those presets again, and it was really fun to kind of re-dig up all that gold and be able to put it all in one place, and now other people get to use that all too, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty exciting.
Are you afraid to be exposed to the demons around you? Open your eyes.
I was actually really amazed when I first got the beta back, because I didn't really know what to expect, and I was kind of maybe not expecting it to be as true to life as it really was. And when I started flipping through the presets in our expansion pack, I could immediately recognize the color and the shape and things of some of the equipment that I've modeled within there, and that was really cool. And since then, I've compared it against some of those chains to see how close they are, and was blown away how close they are. In some cases, just having that chain, but then the flexibility of all the features that are inside ControlHub almost makes the chain more flexible than it is in its real life, you know, version. I have even more buttons to control it and tweak it, and the mix knob of it and everything like that make it the next level version of those tools.
Yeah, I think it was quite interesting when we did get the first beta presets back after we had done them, and I'm flipping through them going, wow, this kind of does sound like us in a certain sense, but quicker, you know. I mean, say on the vocal settings, you know, I can go from a 1073 pre to an API pre to a UTA pre without having to get off my ass and actually patch it in, and even the different EQs, API to, you know, a 1073 EQ. I mean, I just thought it was way quicker to audition and way quicker to try different things. And it was fun. It's fun to just flip through things and hear my 737, my API, and then just decide on the one I like.
Anyone who knows me really well knows my favorite feature in any plugin is the mix knob, and being able to have my actual chains of things and being able to adjust that with a mix knob and instantly get a parallel balance of things. That's just so valuable.
What he said. No, really, that is a really valuable thing to me, and that's actually something he kind of taught me, more the mix knob mentality of you can hit the extreme on certain things and then just use a mix knob to bring it back a little bit until you still have the naturalness of the original tone and the original signal, but then you got the craziness of the other one in there too. And whether it's really a form of parallel compression that we all did years ago, but it's so much easier now, and you can do it now with EQ, and you can do it with all the other things, not just with parallel compression. So that's my favorite feature. I think people are going to really dig this expansion pack, and I think it's because of just being able to flip through large amounts of gear quickly. I think that's where I find it, useful myself personally. Some of these presets we put together had like 3 or 4 pieces of gear to it, or even more in some cases. Kane probably got 10 pieces of gear in his chain. And I think that, not everybody has access to the amounts of gear that we have. I didn't have that starting out, and lots of other people don't have that. We're giving that to you now, saying, here it is, have some fun.
There's 2 kinds of comments I get quite often, and one of them is from people that don't have the gear I have, commenting, oh, it'd be so cool to have that. What's it like having all that rack of stuff there to use? And this answers that. This allows them to use that and have access to that. But the second thing is that even for the people that do have the stuff I have, they ask me, how do I get it to sound like how you get it to sound? And I think that's what this does as well, is it's not only does it give you the color and character of the gear we have and the chains we use, but it's using them exactly how we use them, so it has that feeling, and I think that these presets have that Kevin Churko and Kane Churko sound that anyone that's a fan of our stuff or likes the records we do will be looking for and will enjoy.